everyone. Welcome to the 5-Beer Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, I take the next step in the homebrew project, go to the small town of Sumner, Iowa for insight into the rural vibes of the brewery scene there, and review an interesting sour from Pulpit Rock Brewing. But before we get this party started, here is this episode's burning question. What is your favorite pastry sour? According to Untapped, mine is a 7.3% ABV beer from Drecker Brewing called Brains Blackberry Passion Fruit Pineapple. This came from Tavor when it used to be accessible in my zip code. So much flavor. So purple. So thick and juicy. Loads of blackberry, passion fruit, and pineapple just overwhelm the tongue with a tart, sour finish with massive mouthfeel. Have I mentioned how thick it is? In this segment of Homebrew Hijinks, where I document my homebrew adventures, I boil off the Holiday Cream Ale. With my 1.5 gallon pre-boil volume of wort, I was now ready to turn up the heat on this project. While I waited, I put my hop spider in the brew kettle and measured out my hops. This would be a pretty straightforward 60-minute hop schedule with only cluster used. The boil would have 0.1 ounces of hops added at 60 minutes, 0.2 ounces added at 5 minutes, and 0.2 ounces at flame out. As an aside, cluster is one of the oldest hop varieties grown in the U.S. It is a great dual-use hop, providing both bittering and aroma to the beer. Flavor-wise, it offers floral, earthy, and slightly fruity notes. A nice option for a cream ale that won't overpower the desired flavor and aroma in the end. Since I wanted to brew a beer with as much clarity as possible, I would also add 1 ounce of Irish moss at 15 minutes in the boil. I've not talked about it recently, but Irish moss attracts and clumps haze-causing proteins which will settle out of the beer. This will help add some clarity. There are other ways to accomplish this, but this will be the most efficient for me. With about 15 minutes remaining in the boil, I prepared my water bath. Typically, this means I have to sanitize the sink and surrounding workspace, buy a couple 7-pound bags of ice, and add water. Once again, pretty basic. Next episode, I pitch the yeast and initiate fermentation. Now, it's time for Barstool Banter. In this episode, I chat with Diana Niedecker and Jacob Hamilton from 21 Brewery in Sumner, Iowa, located in the northeast corner of the state. You might hear my laughing at the start of the conversation. We had already been chatting for 10 minutes before kicking off the interview. What a lot of fun. We talk about the origins of the brewery, the small town vibe, and what it takes to reach a rural community. One more thing. The Iowa Craft Pass comes up. You can't see it, but I was showing off my free t-shirt. Well, welcome to Barstool Banter. I'm sitting down with Diana Niedecker and Jacob Hamilton from 21 Brewery in Sumner, Iowa. Thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedules to join me on the podcast.
Thank you. We're so excited.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Can you please tell me what your roles are at the brewery?
I am Jacob, and my role is take care of all the brewing. And I also kind of maybe more of the operations side and kind of help a lot in our kitchen too, which we have a almost full-time person, but I do a lot of that too. So kind of a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So I run the tap room. I train, hire staff. We have a charitable arm of the brewery. I run all of that. I do all the emails, all the social media. What else?
That's a lot.
Kind of the day-to-day, the other kind of day-to-day stuff.
So you're co-owners then of the brewery?
We are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. One of the things that when I first started the podcast about 4 years ago, there weren't a whole lot of female-owned breweries or female brewers. So have you encountered any kind of pushback there in Iowa with that being the case?
I think it is really good for a small rural community to see a powerful, confident woman making these decisions, right? I think there's some pushback in the sense of sometimes questioning my decisions, right? Like, are you sure? Should you ask Jacob? Like, that type of stuff. So I think we've had to be really aligned on like, one of us is making that rule or decision or whatever that is. And that is the rule. That is the boundary. That is whatever that is. And so I think because this is a new community for us, we didn't grow up here, don't have family here. We moved here for the brewery. And so I think we've built a lot of friendships, a lot of rapport. And so I think kind of our personalities, people kind of know that what our roles are, what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I was just gonna say, on our block, I mean, in Sumner, there are a lot of women-owned businesses, women-run businesses too. So I think that
Yep.
just kind of fits in. I mean, there's on our block, 1, 2 businesses that are not. I mean, we have
Yeah.
5 or 6, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a lot of women, young women, non-binary folks that work in the tap room as well. And so I think just working really hard on kind of like building that confidence and that peace. We've had a couple instances, some bad behavior, but for the most part, I think the local folks especially really respect the rules that we hold and the space that we've created.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey to Sumner? I did read a little bit on your website about that, but I'd like you to tell my listeners a little bit more about how you ended up in rural Sumner.
So we came from St. Paul, Minnesota. I had worked at 4 breweries in and around Minnesota since 2015, just kind of working for other people. And I grew up in a family-owned business, so I think I kind of had that part in my blood, just wanting to run something and do it ourselves, make our own decisions. We were kind of looking around, there was a few other communities that came up, had some friends in this area. And I think, honestly, in Sumner in particular, we were looking at other communities around this area, but Sumner in this building, I mean, we had said we would live here regardless of kind of where we would be, just because they had the small town amenities that you need, kind of being around that 2,000 people size. But the downtown seemed fairly thriving for a small town. And I think this building was just kind of what brought us here too, right?
This building is magical. Like Jacob said, we looked at a number of buildings and a number of communities. And I think there was a moment, I remember walking into this building and just kind of getting that lightning bolt feeling of like, oh, this is the space. And I think we could not see it right in the moment of what it could be, but just knowing, there's tin ceilings and old floors, and it's just a Main Street building. So it's connected, on a block to other buildings, and it was built in 1898. And so I think the building and then the people that we purchased the building from were huge drivers in this move for us. They were just so excited to have us here and really
Supportive.
really went above and beyond to get us here and all of that stuff. So I really loved coming from a big city. I really love St. Paul. And so I think that transition was pretty difficult for me and still is at times. But I think, there's a brand new childcare and there's a hospital and there's a grocery store and a lot of people in this town long before we got here that have done a ton to really make this a thriving community. So I think that was really appealing for us as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I had grown up in Iowa, but 2.5 hours away from here. I think just looking at the landscape of what beer was right here, there wasn't a brewery within a half hour or so, but you still have like Toppling Goliath, Pulpit Rock, you've got these kind of destination breweries that we've seen some feed off of people coming from, say, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, that are going up to Decorah. They make it a point to find a way to come through here too, which is kind of cool. So like release days up in Decorah for beers, we definitely see a few people that we know that are going to stop by and come. So that's cool too.
I love the small town vibe, honestly. When you mentioned, you've got the tin ceilings, and I know some buildings probably have the interior brick walls and whatnot. I mean, I just love the history, just love the charm. It's just nice to have that slower pace, I think, in general. And I think the type of people you maybe have, Midwesterners, just are a different breed of people. They're just really, really nice.
I think that was a cool thing for us when we were in St. Paul and still kind of like daydreaming, brainstorming about this space. And, you think about who's coming to your small town brewery. And I think for us, it was you or us or kind of, like 30, 40-year-old kind of beer nerds, people who really like.
Thank you.
I
just turned 55 a week ago.
Oh, you look great. I would have no idea.
Thank you.
And so I think, like you just think of kind of that craft beer boom of say 30 to 55-year-olds, there you go, who want this space for like fancy IPAs or whatever. And then I think we got here and we've got a group of old ladies in their 80s that come in every Sunday and they split chips and salsa together and they all get a small pour of a light beer. And we've got the Legion guys that come by after their fish fries. And we've got people with very young children. You know, we've had a lot of super fresh babies, like we're their first brewery, and the people that maybe you didn't think would use this space often. And that's been really cool for us, is that you get to, in a small town where there is not a brewery within 30, 35 minutes, you get to completely reimagine what your space is and who gets to be welcome in a small town brewery. And that's been my favorite part, I think. How do you work with the high schoolers? How do you work with the Legion? How do you work with other folks to tie in this space as a community meeting point?
Mhm.
That's been really cool for me.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. So can you tell me how long the brewery has been open?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in February.
Yep, February 17th, I
Yep.
think is in 24
Yep.
is when we opened.
So a little over a year and a half.
Awesome.
We've got
Awesome.
18 people on payroll right now and pay a really good wage and an equal tip share. And we have a phenomenal team. I mean, you met some of our folks, you know, when we weren't here, when you visited, and we have a really excellent crew, which is very cool.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we couldn't do any
my
of this
gosh.
without all of them as well.
not even a little bit.
You've got to find people that can support you and that you can trust and be away on a Sunday and know that it's going to be okay.
And it was never intentional, but we have a number of folks who are not yet 21 and also a number of our staff who don't drink. And so it's actually been this really cool piece where there's no pretension when you come in, right? You've never been to a brewery before. This is brand new for you. You're trying to figure out, what do you like? What don't you like? You know, I think we've all been to breweries where maybe you're unsure of something and you don't always feel super welcome, or our space gets to be this very like slow pace, welcoming space where like we are willing to give you some samples. We are willing to talk about tasting notes of, you know, all 16 things. And we will keep trying until you find a thing that you really like. And it's been really cool because I think we have folks, yeah, that like myself or other staff that don't drink or aren't old enough to drink. There's just no pretension. I'm really proud of our team for that. And it was never intentional. I think
No.
it just kind of happened.
I think our tap list kind of leans to that too. I mean, I personally like hazy IPAs, but I know that not everyone does. So I try and make a wide selection of offerings, you know, maybe a hard seltzer, a couple different sodas too. So NA options and we have pizza. So I think just trying to be a space for everyone. I think in these, you know, in smaller communities, you kind of have to be a space for more than just one specific type of person.
Yep.
It seems like the craft breweries are becoming that gathering place for people to come and just, you know, be welcome, just to spend time with their friends or their family, enjoy some great craft beer, just enjoy life. It's a beautiful thing the craft industry has brought to the world, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have a back party room. And so last month we hosted a 65-year class reunion. So it was about 30, 85-year-olds. It was a lot of root beers, you know, but I think so we have a space for folks who are almost 80. And then this weekend we hosted a 12-year-old's birthday party, right? And day after Thanksgiving, we have a 3-year-old birthday party. And yeah, really being that space where anybody in the community is welcome. That is really cool, I think, for us.
Craft breweries tend to just embrace that because they just love to be around people, to serve people. I love that about what you're doing there as well. That's really awesome. So can you tell me a little bit about the name of the brewery? When I first saw it, I kept thinking it was 10 wasps. And then I'm like, well, no, it's not 10 wasps, it's 10 wasp, singular. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. There's no reason that it's not
Plural.
wasps. I think one time so it stems back from naming one of my first home brews. You know, when we were trying to come up with a name for this space, when we had a location picked out, I think should we name something on the community, the area? And it just felt a little maybe ingenuine because we weren't from here. We're not trying to be or trying to say we are. 10 Wasp comes from one of my first home brews in the garage. Like a cooler fall day, the wasps were flying around the brew kettle. It was a peach saison, and I think maybe killed 10, swatted away. I don't know, but that first beer was named 10 Wasp Saison. And so we kind of played off that and used that name. I don't know. We just kind of ran with it. There also is very hard to come up with brewery names.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That was a huge task, right? I mean, because like that's how people know you. That's what people remember, or they don't remember, or you have something, too many words, it's too tricky, too many syllables, it's hard to pronounce. And so Oh my gosh, we had so many, and we had group texts with all of our family, and what is this one? And a lot of bad ideas, a lot of like, some
Yeah.
stinkers, some that kind of hung around. And then I think this was just such a cool one because
Kind of
there's,
kept coming back to
yep,
it, right?
yep.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like it. And then I think it just like really honors, this thing that Jacob, I mean, he started homebrewing in 2009. And so it was one of the first things he brewed all that time ago, and just felt like a cool way to bring that history into a brand new place. So like the brewery is new and the name gets renewed and we are new to this community and all of that stuff. And so that felt,
Mhm.
it just felt like the right name. And so we have a friend, Nick, who does all of our design work. And so the logo is fantastic. And so he did a lot with the logo, which is very cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really love the logo.
So
I just
cool.
wondered kind of how it came about because now
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, when I looked at it originally, I was like, why is there a coffin on the can?
Oh,
It's a
Something
coffin.
It is.
It is.
Okay.
There's two coffins in the logo. So where the 10 is inside inside a fermenter, right?
Yep.
Which is the vessel
Okay.
you use to brew beer.
Yep.
The stinger is a casket to represent the 10 wasps that Jacob killed brewing the saison. And then the big casket that goes around the logo represents the history of our building. So the rumor goes in the 1930s, somebody was upstairs messing around, discovered a false wall. And you can still see today where the plaster had been knocked down. Behind the false wall were a whole bunch of caskets. So various stories as to why they were there, who put them there, how long they were there. But so the big casket then represents the history of the building.
yeah.
The 10 is for the, kind of history of brewing. And then the stinger is the kind of history of Jacob's story.
I love it.
Yeah.
Paying homage to the past
Yeah.
and paying homage to the future and kind of tying it all together. That's really
Yep.
cool.
Yeah.
And then I think when you look at the can too, there's poppies. So everything is in groups of 5. So 2 groups of 5. So always 10, right? So 5 poppies on the top, 5 on the bottom. The logo on our door, there are 5 small caskets on the top, 5 on the bottom. So always equaling 10.
I think clean and simple for us was kind of what we wanted. Even when you come into the space, I think we wanted to be bright, inviting, but also clean and like not too cluttery or anything either.
Yep.
But
Not super shiny, right? Like I think both of us are kind of substance over style. Like letting the work speak for itself, right? Like we don't need a whole bunch of like flashing signs and big fancy stuff. We want you to come in, have a good time, enjoy this like really beautiful space, but also let the work, let the staff, let the environment, let all that stuff kind of speak for itself.
I mean, we had been in plenty of breweries that are dark and just feel very
Sure.
masculine is the right word, or just that darker, kind of harsher feeling. And I think we just wanted to, feed off our big front window, inviting and bright. And
Yep.
I don't know.
I mean, you
Right.
said masculine. That is a good point too, right? Because I
That's what
think
it
like
is.
we do know that about the brewing industry, right? And I think I
Yeah.
know there are some places that are actively trying to like fight against that, but I think the brewing industry is not always super welcoming to women, non-binary folk. And so I think for us, yeah, kind of breaking down that space that it's not a sports bar. We don't have TVs. It's not a lot of, things are bright, things are welcoming. That is important to us. So having very different styles of drinks too, where people feel like they have a lot of choices. Sometimes we get comments that men are like, "Oh, I want to try a sour, but it's only for women." And the idea that, men can like fruit too and women can like dark fruit too. And so I think kind of pushing against that this is a bright, welcoming space for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, breaking down those barriers and just
Yep.
making it so that people realize that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you
Yeah.
like, what you don't like. Come enjoy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You kind of alluded to it. When I visited Iowa earlier this summer, I had a couple of select breweries on my radar. Toppling Goliath has been on my list for years and years and years. My good buddy Logan, my main Beerski, I call him, his wife is from Waverly, and so they would always talk about Toppling Goliath. Fortunately, I can get Toppling Goliath here locally, but to have something on tap at the tap room is definitely a wish list item for me. So when I went to Toppling Goliath, I see that there's a QR for the Iowa Beer Passport, and I'm like, what is this? And I scan it and I'm like, oh man, I always get sucked in. So just so you can see.
Nice. It worked.
It did work. So it opened my eyes to just how great the Iowa craft scene is, I think. I've never asked anyone before with these craft passes, what kind of requirement is there for joining the type of a list, so to speak?
So this one, the Iowa Craft Beer Passport, is put on by Travel Iowa. So like our statewide travel agency. They also have a wine passport, a distillery passport, and now I think they just launched a shop local one that features farmers markets. So there are all different apps or different pieces. They have a state parks one as well, I think, but completely free for us, which is very cool. And so I think you, as a brewery, you sign up. There's a little over 100 breweries in the state of Iowa. I don't know how many are on that passport. I haven't looked recently.
79, I believe it was.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. We get to decide what our discount is or what that perk is. And so I think some of them are, your first pint is free, your first pint is half off, $3 off your second one, or whatever that is, 10% off of merch. So
Yep.
the brewery gets to decide what that is. And then we use like a bit of an honor system. So you come in, you say you have the passport, you pull it up. On my end, on the POS, I have a button that activates that, and then you hit redeem. And we don't double check. It's really kind of honor system for us. But the Tourism Bureau, they will send things out maybe quarterly or twice a year, some time frame, and they'll kind of say, this is how many check-ins we've had, this is how many users we have, new signups, renewal signups, all of that. So I know there are some passports that cost a fair amount of money or all of that, but this one put on by the Travel Iowa is free. And I'd have to look on our end. We've had a number of check-ins. Even this weekend, I think we probably had about a dozen of them. So it's cool for us. I mean, it's cool. People love incentives. And then I think there are some folks who maybe that couple dollars off gives them a little bit of oomph to come this way. And I think we've talked about that a little bit, but in like our little pocket of Northeast Iowa, there are probably about 10 breweries. And so we do get a lot of day trippers on Saturdays and Sundays that kind of bounce around to a lot of us. And, it's better for all of us. I always say, like, the more of us there are in this pocket, the better for all of us, because we're a good team when we all work together. But I think that's how the pass works.
Do you do any kind of partnering up with any of the local breweries that are in your area as well?
With Bremer Brewing, we just done a collaboration brew, Thanks for the Memories. That IPA we just brewed with them. We've done one where I'm actually from too. There's in Titanca, Iowa. There's Titanca Brewing there. So that's a smaller town of 700, but they're doing pretty well too. So we've done one with them. Kind of that's, I think, the extent of us working together. But there was some flooding in Spencer, where Diana's from, over on the western side of Iowa. And kind of all of us, we were going to go help out a little bit. And we kind of got a hold of the local breweries. There was a brewery there, or still is, I don't know. Iowa Brewing Project, but we kind of helped get all of them supplies too, if they needed.
They lost a mill, they lost a bunch of cans, they lost a bunch of stuff. So Court at Tellurian and James at Bremer and Jeff at Titanca, they all donated things, and then we gathered them all and dropped them off to Nick at Iowa Brewing Project. And so, that was cool for everybody to kind of jump in and be willing to help. And there's a beer garden up in Decorah called Dixie's. So they are a tap house. They have about 35 Iowa beers on tap. Yeah. And we are friends with Nick and Jordan, who own it. And so we've done a couple things with them. So we've done Droppin' Hops, which is a hazy pale ale. And so they came down here and they'll brew it with us. And then it's kind of their like house beer.
Okay.
The Fresh Hop. Yep. Fresh Hop IPA. We got 35 pounds of their fresh hops from their patio. So they picked them at like 11 o'clock at night and then brought them down here like 8 a.m. the next morning so Jacob could brew.
Nugget and Cascade.
Yeah. And I think, kind of middle of the country, not a lot of breweries get to do a fresh hop. So super cool to be able to do something like that with them.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up. But first, one more for the road. This episode, I'm keeping it regional and drinking best wishes from Pulpit Rock Brewing. From the brewer, pastry sour with blueberries and homemade honey granola. Without further delay, so this is a 7% ABV pastry sour. I picked this beer up directly from the brewery when I visited there this summer. So I poured this out into a pint glass coming from one of my local favorites, Drafting Table, up in Wixom, Michigan. The beer poured kind of a apple cider sort of color. Slightly opaque. Fair amount of effervescence when I poured it into the glass. There's a nice fluffy white head that dissipates fairly quickly. So, on the nose, So I do get that nice blueberry that I was expecting. It's very prominent there. Maybe just a tinge of sweetness as well. Maybe just a bit of maybe that honey. Maybe that's what I'm smelling that gives me that little bit of sweetness. Okay, so first sip impression. Oh, yeah. So this has some really nice, fresh kind of blueberry flavor on the palate. It starts out at the very beginning. Ooh. Sorry, my receptors are causing me to squint here. It's pretty sour. So at the very beginning, it's got a nice tart start on the front of the palate. You can just sense it kind of, I don't know, just exciting the front of the tongue with that tartness. As soon as you get some of this beer on your tongue, then you start to get that nice fruit flavor, that berry kind of bitterness, right? So when you use fresh blueberries, fresh fruit in general, you tend to get a little bit more of maybe a bitter forward flavor. It's light-bodied. It's certainly quite easy drinking, even at 7% here. When I use my retronasal tasting, I get a lot of that honey granola on that aroma, on that flavor. It's actually pretty nice. Yeah, really get that nice honey granola flavor. So tasty. In fact, it's interesting. So as I've aged, I do notice that certain things will cause maybe a little bit more of a response on the finish. Because this has honey in it, honey tends to give me just a tiny bit of I'm going to say it's a boozy burn, but I know it's probably not that exactly. But I get just a little bit of a burn, and if I didn't know there was honey granola in here, I would certainly guess that there was probably some amount of honey somewhere in the beer. Not off-putting at all. I'm just saying that this is something that I can sense in my own personal tasting. So now that I've had a little bit more of this, maybe I've agitated the beer a little bit in the glass here, tipping it up and down a bit. I now get a little bit more of that granola aroma on the nose. It's really nice. It's a complete package. It's exactly what was described. It's sweet, but it's not cloyingly so. It's got a nice, as I said, a nice tart bitterness in there, but you also get that nice kind of earthy, grainy, honey granola flavor in there as well. So really, really well done. So I give this one 4 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. Cheers, Pulpit Rock Brewing. I'm always looking for new craft beverages to review. So if you've got one from your favorite local craft brewery, meadery, or cidery you'd like me to drink and describe, reach out and let me know. I do just want to take a moment to thank Diana and Jacob for sending me some fantastic beer. I have to be honest, I got so excited about the beer that I neglected to set one aside for review here on the podcast, though I did enjoy one of them during our interview and we do talk about it briefly. If you happen to find yourself anywhere near 10 Wasp Brewing, be sure to try the amazing hazy fresh hop version 1, the hazy collab with Bremer Brewing, Thanks for the Memories, and their version of a pumpkin ale called Pum Frickin' Nowhere. For what it's worth, if I would have rated these on the show, they would have all rated 4 tasters out of 5 on the flight board or higher. Really amazing beer. That's all for this episode of the 5 Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time for the initiation of the Yeast Feast and the Homebrew Project, a quick tip from my homebrew expert David, the continuation of my 10 Wasp adventure, and another beer review. Remember to hit the subscribe button on your preferred podcast platform to be notified of new episodes. Follow me on Instagram as well, 5 Beer Plan 2022, to see what is happening on my personal ale trail. I'd love to hear from you, and there are several ways you may do so. Leave a comment for this episode on Spotify, direct message me on Instagram or email me directly, 5beerplan@frontier.com. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail and stay thirsty, my friends.